Okay. We're going to go over a couple of these, and I'm not doing everyone. I'll do one 2x2, I'll do one 3x3, and then we'll do some of the completing the square problems. But for your Kramer's rule, the actual answer is your solution, meaning your x, y, or if it's a 3x3, your x, y, z, your ordered pair, your ordered triple. The pieces of it, like the coefficient determinant, and then the d sub x, d sub y, d sub z, those are all parts of the problem. But that's not the actual answer. So the first thing you guys need to do, and I cannot stress upon you enough to pay attention to this, you need to make sure, so you don't make any mistakes, that your equations are set up where x's are on top of x's, y's are on top of y's, then there's an equal sign, and then you have your answers. Because if not, if it's not set in that form, you need to move stuff around so it is then like that. So you get the signs correct. So, you know, if I move -10 to the other side of the equation, it becomes positive, you know, stuff like that. So I have two variables and two equations. That means I have to find three determinants. You have to find your d, which is your coefficients. Then you have to find d sub x and d sub y. So the way that we go about this when it's a 2x2, it's super easy. I have x's are 4 and 6, and my y's are -3 and 9, just the coefficients. Now when we multiply, it's top left, so 4 times 9 minus top right down, 6 times -3. You can write it as -3 times 6, doesn't matter. You can say 6 times -3. So 9 times 4 is 36 minus 6 times -3 is -18. Two negatives make a positive, so I get positive 54. Somebody asked me yesterday when I was going over these, why does it matter if I do like the yellow diagonal first versus the green diagonal? Here's the reason why. Because there is a minus sign right here. If I did it backwards, if I said -3 times 6 minus 4 times 9, right? I still get -18 here, correct? And I still get 36 over here. But this minus sign in the middle then makes this -54. So when you do your diagonals in the wrong order, you have to do the major, which is top left to bottom right, minus the minor, which is top right to bottom left. You have to do it in that correct order so the signs are correct. And signs are a big deal because there's a huge difference between a -2 and a +2, or a -7 and a +7. Does that make sense? So make sure you guys are paying attention to the order that you're multiplying and subtracting. So now when we do d sub x, that means instead of my x coefficients, I plug in the answer. So I have -10 and 12. And then my y is -3, 9. So -3 and 9. Again, top left to bottom right. So I have -10 times 9 minus, and then I have 12 and -3. So 12 times -3. This is you guys showing me your work. -10 times 9 is -90. Minus 12 times -3 is -36. So what's -90 plus 36? I'm going to get -54. So my d sub x is -54. Everybody with me? Now we're going to do the same thing down here, d sub y. So I'm going to write my x coefficients, which are 4 and 6. And then instead of my y coefficients, I'll use the answer. So it's -10 and 12. So I'm going to multiply 4 times -12. 4 times 12 minus 6 and -10. So I have 4 times 12 is 48 minus a -60. Well, minus the negative gives me plus. 48 and 60 is 108. So my d sub y is 108. Now, some of you left your answers like this. This is what you left on your work, and you submitted it. You have not answered the question, guys. When you're solving equations, you should get an ordered pair and ordered triple. So I have that my d sub x is -54, and I have d sub y is positive 108, correct? Now we take each determinant with their sub x, sub y, and you divide it by the coefficient matrix, which is the determinant. So 54 And then when we simplify, negative 54 divided by 54 is negative 1, and 108 divided by 54 is 2. This is your answer. Long process to solve a problem. I understand that. That's why I'm not going to give you 8 of these to do on the quiz. But if you keep yourself organized, you take your time, this is very simple. And then how do I know for sure that I'm right? What can I do with negative 1, 2? I can plug it right back in there. And it'll satisfy both equations. Make sense? Yeah? All right, let's look at this one. Let's look at 6. 6 is a little longer because it's 3 equations and 3 variables. So that means I have to find 4 different determinants. I have to find the coefficient determinant. I have to find d sub x. I have to find d sub y. And I have to find d sub z. So again, to find d sub x, we just take just our coefficients of all, all 3. So x, 3, I don't know why I put that. I didn't mean to put x there. We're using just our coefficients. Make sure that all of your x's are on top of each other, all your y's are on top of each other, all your z's are on top of each other, and then your answers are on the other side. So I have 1, 3, and 2. My y coefficients would be 1, negative 1, 1, and then my z coefficients would be negative 2, negative 5, 2. And then what do I do? This is a little different since I have a 3 by 3. What do I do here? Not yet.
Oh.
What do I have to do first before I find my majors and my minors?
You copy.
I have to recopy the first 2 columns. Good. So 1, 3, 2. 1, negative 1, 1. Now I can do top left, bottom right. I have 1 there, there, and there. Take your time, guys. There's no rush. Take your time. Make sure you get all your numbers correct. You have them in the right order. What's 1 times negative 1 times 2? It's going to give me negative 2. Negative 5 times 1 times 2 is negative 10. And then negative 2 times 3 times 1 is negative 6. Check me as I go through, please. Then I have my minors here. 2 times negative 1 times negative 2 is going to give me 4. 1 times negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. 2 times 3 is 6. So simplify your first parenthesis. Negative 2 minus 10 minus 6 is going to give me negative 18. Minus 4 minus 5 is negative 1. Right? Plus 6 is 5. So what's negative 18 minus 5? Negative 23. So the determinant for your coefficient matrix is negative 23. So we're going to take all of our determinant, d sub x, d sub y, d sub z, and divide that by negative 23. So we're going to just do this same process 3 more times. I'm going to find d sub x, meaning instead of x, I'm going to use the answers. So I have 2, 8, negative 7 in my first column. 2, 8, negative 7. Then I have my y coefficients, 1, negative 1, 1. Then my z coefficients, negative 2, negative 5, and 2. We're going to recopy the first and second column. 2, 8, negative 7, 1, negative 1, 1. And then once we do that, we're going to crisscross. Top left, bottom right. Top left to bottom right. That's my first, those are my majors. 2 times negative 1 times 2 is negative 4. 1 times negative 5 times negative 7 is plus 35. And then negative 2 times 8 is minus 16. So then I have minus. And then this becomes negative 7 times negative 1 times negative 2 is negative 14. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. And then 2 times 8 is plus 16. So in your first parenthesis, guys, you have negative 4 plus 35 is what? 31 minus 16 gives me 15 minus. Negative 14 minus 10 is negative 24 plus 16 is negative 8. What happens when you have minus a negative? It becomes a plus. Good. So this answer is 23. So d sub x is positive 23. So now we're going to go do the same thing again, but instead of my y's, what am I going to plug in for y? My answers, right? So my x's are 1, 3, 2. 1, 3, 2. Instead of y coefficients, I'm going to use answers. So 2, 8, negative 7. 2, 8, negative 7. And then my z's are negative 2, negative 5, 2. So negative 2, negative 5, 2. Then we recopy column 1 and column 2. And then we do the same thing again. Top left to bottom right. There, there, there. That's my majors. So I have 1 times 8 times 2 is 16. 2 times 2 is 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. And then negative 2 times 3 times negative 7 is going to give me what, 42? Minus. So here, here, here. I have 8 times 2 times negative 2 is negative 32. Negative 7 and negative 5 is plus 35. And then 2 times 3 times 2, 12. All right, so 16 minus 20 is negative 4. Plus 42 gives me positive 38. Minus the negative 32 plus 35 is 3, correct? Plus 15, so 38 minus 15. What does that give me? Oh, 23 again. Nice. So d sub y is 23. All right, guys, same thing. We're finding d sub z. So instead of my z coefficients, I'm going to plug in the answers. So I have 1, 3, 2 for my x column. 1, 3, 2, coefficients of x. Then I have 1, negative 1, 1 for my coefficients of y. 1, negative 1, 1. And then I'm plugging in answers for my z column. So 2, 8, negative 7. 2, 8, negative 7. We recopy columns 1 and 2. 1, 3, 2. 1, negative 1, 1. And then we go top left to bottom right. That's our majors. So I say 1 times negative 1 times negative 7, 7. 1 times 8 times 2, 16. 2 times 3 times 1 is 6. Minus here, here, here. So we have 2 times negative 1 times 2 is negative 4. 1 times 8 times 1 is 8. And negative 7 times 3, negative 21. So 7 and 6 is 13 plus 16. This gives me 13 and 16, what, 39?
40.
Right, 39. And then I have minus negative 4 plus 8 is 4. Minus 17, so minus a negative 17. Yeah? What's 39 minus a negative gives me plus. What's 39 plus 17? 46. Okay, so this is 46. Now, we did a whole bunch of math here, but we have yet to answer the question. You have 3 equations with 3 variables, so you should have an ordered triple as your answer. How do I find that ordered triple? I'm going to take all of my subs, my d sub x, my d sub y, my d sub z, and divide it by the determinant. So divided by negative 23, divide by negative 23, divide by negative 23. So my ordered triple is negative 1, negative 1, negative 2. Yes? Now what do? How do I check? How do I know I'm right? You can check all 3 equations with those 3, that ordered triple, and make sure that you're right. Are they always going to turn out to nice, beautiful whole numbers? No. If you get a fraction, that's okay. You guys will have calculators. You can go back and fix it however you need to, but it is okay if you get a fraction. All right, let's go to some circle ones. I want to do these ones I'm going to do all the even ones. We'll do 2, 4, 6, 8. On your quiz, you're going to have 2 completing the square ones. I'm going to tell you that right now. You're going to have 2 completing the square ones. You're not going to have any like 8 and 12, but I just want to go over it in case you see something like that. You will have completing the square. You'll have a couple of them. So when we complete the square, guys, you got to think of some things. You want all of your x's and y's to be on the one side of the equal sign, and you want your x squareds and your y squareds to be positive. So the way that this is set up, can I do something to make x squared and y squared positive? Can I move them somewhere? To the other side. Good. If I move x squared and y squared over, I get x squared. I'm also going to move the 24, so I have plus 24x plus, I know I'm going to have to complete the square, so I'm going to leave a spot. And then I have y squared plus 6y plus the square equals. I'm going to move 137 to the other side. It's going to become negative. You guys agree? Now, this is a problem that you guys have seen a million times. When you complete the square, you take the b term, and that's going to tell you everything you need to know. 24 divided by 2 equals 12. That means my binomial over here is x plus 12 squared. The reason it's plus is because it's positive. And then when we complete the square, you square this number and you put it in the square. 12 squared is 144. And what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So you have to add 144. So I have a big plus sign. Now we're going to do the same thing here. Complete the square. 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Well, I now have y plus 3 quantity squared. And then 3 squared equals what? 9. And I'm going to add 9 to one side, then add 9 to the other side. So over here, guys, what's 135 plus 144 plus 9? What does that give me? 16?
No, is it 16 or 18?
It is 18. Good. So right there, you're going to have 3 questions you have to answer. One of the questions, or part of the question, is write your standard form of a circle. There's your standard form. Now I have to say, okay, the second part is going to be, well, what's the center? Guys, what's the center of this circle? What's the h, what's the k? What's with the x, what's with the y?
12.3.
So it's going to be negative 12 and negative 3. It's the opposite of what you think because the standard form has a minus sign in the middle. And then your radius is what? Our standard form of an equation of circles, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared. So how do I figure out what the radius is?
18 squared.
It's the square root of 18, right? Because in the equation, that's radius squared, so you take the square root. Can you guys break that down? Yes. If you can break it down, you have to. The square root of 18 is the same as 9 times 2, right? Which becomes 3 root 2. So here are your answers to this question. This piece where it's in standard form, this piece where you tell the center, and this piece where you give your radius simplified. Very important that you guys simplify it. So again, let's do this. My x squares and my y squareds are already positive. Perfect. But that 24y is on the wrong side, isn't it? So let's rewrite this. You want x squared first plus 2x plus, you're going to complete the square. Then I have plus y squared. What happens when positive 24 goes to the other side of the equal sign? It becomes negative 24y. Good. And then I can leave that negative 120 over there because that's where I want it anyways. So when we complete the square, take that b term. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So that's everything I need to know. X plus 1 squared. And then 1 squared is how much? 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Now I have a big plus sign there. So now I take my b term, which is negative 24, and I divide it by 2. Gives me negative 12. So this parenthesis is y minus 12 squared. 12 squared is 144. So if I add 144 here, I add 144 here. So what do I get? What's negative 120 plus 1 plus 44? 144. So we get equals 25. So there is the equation of my circle in standard form. So now you guys tell me what the center is. What's the center? What's the x? What's the y? -1, +12. It's the opposite of what you see. And then my radius. Well, radius squared is 25. So what's the radius? 5. Take the square root. Good. Does that make sense? For our purposes, where we complete the square on our quiz, we're going to give you all where your x squared and your y squareds are positive. Their coefficient's 1, so you don't have to divide anything. And your b term will be an even number, so it works out nice and pretty. All right, let's look at the last one here, and then we're going to do 2 more, and then we're done. Again, I want my x squareds and y squareds to be positive, so let's move that x squared to the right-hand side, or left-hand side. Becomes positive. I have 8x and I have plus this square. Y squared plus 32y plus the box. And we'll just leave our -263. That's fine. So take your b term. What's your b term? 8. It's going to tell us everything we need to know. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this is going to be x plus 4 squared. Then when I square 4, I get 16. Add it to both sides. Then I have plus 32 divided by 2 is what? 16. So y plus 16 squared equals, what's 16 times 16? 256? Yep, sure, 256 on both sides. So what's -263 plus 16 plus 256? What is that going to give me? All right, equals 9. So there's my equation of my circle in standard form. What is the center of this circle?
-4.
It's -4, -16, right? And then what's my radius?
3.
Perfect. Now, if you are given the center and the radius, this is real easy because you're just working backwards. Remember, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared, right? In your center, the x part is your h and the y part is your k. So this would become x minus -6 squared plus y minus -15 squared equals the square root of 5 squared. And then we can simplify that. What's minus a negative become? So this is x plus 6 squared. Then I have y plus 15 squared. And then when you square a square root, guys, what happens? When you square a square root, what happens here? Just becomes just 5. So there's your equation of your circle. Now, where this completing the square part comes from, let me just show you guys. You don't have to do this, but if I were to FOIL out x plus 6 squared, right? It's x plus 6 times x plus 6, like this. This would be x squared plus 12x plus 36. And then this is y plus 15 times y plus 15. So it's y squared plus 30y plus 225 equals 5. Then they would subtract 36 from both sides, and they would subtract 225 from both sides. So the problem would look like this: x squared plus 12x plus y squared plus 30y equals, what's 5 minus 36 minus 256? 5 minus 36 minus 225 is -256. If you guys started off with that problem, you'd be able to get, like we just did for a couple examples, to that point. That's how those two are related. The purple is standard form, where you can just extrapolate or take out the center and the radius. The other one is where you have to use the completing the square. If you had something like 12, we're not going to have something like this, but if you had something like 12, in order to write your equation of a circle, you need the center and you need the radius. Well, if you have a picture, this is pretty easy. The center of the circle, do you guys agree with me, is right there? Mm-hmm. What is that point? It's 4, -3. So your center is 4, -3. And your radius is how far it is from the center to a point on the circle. How many spaces do I have to go to the right? 2. How many do I have to go up? How many to the left? What's your radius, guys? 2. So if you were going to write your equation of the circle, it'd be x minus 4 squared plus y minus a negative would give me plus 3 squared equals your radius squared. 2 squared is 4. And then if they wanted you to FOIL it out, they tell you to FOIL it out, or if you had to completely square, whatever. But on your quiz, you're going to have 2 Kramer's rules. One that's a 2 by 2, one that's a 3 by 3, and then 2 of these completing the square ones. Because there's a lot to it. It takes a little bit of time. I don't want you guys to feel rushed or anything. But on Monday, I put together, I don't know, like 6 or 8 problems for us to just practice. So we'll go through on Monday and Tuesday to get you ready for your quiz. Sound good?